Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome, lovers of lyrics and devotees of ditties. Reporting from the corner of 42nd Street and Oklahoma, I'm your host, Miles from London. As the orchestra tunes up, let's tune in to another guided tour through the world of the movie musical. Today, we're looking at The Lion King, a film that showed us that roaring into an empty bin could be legitimate employment. So pop your coat under your seat, mobiles to silent, and let's pull back the curtain on the main feature. Heat shimmers off the savannah as a molten sun claws its way over the horizon, pouring liquid light across skeletal acacia trees. Then Lebo M's Zulu chant erupts. It is reverent and elemental. Before any word is spoken, you feel it. Something monumental is beginning. From every corner of the kingdom, animals converge. Birds flock overhead. Elephants march with ceremonial grace. Insects scurry with purpose. This is a pilgrimage. As the camera sweeps from dust to horizon, from the smallest ant to the loftiest giraffe, we are shown a world where every creature knows its place in something greater. Circle of Life is the opening number. It is a poem to beginnings. A cub is born. In place of dialogue, the film gives us a ritual. Movement, music, and respect for nature. The theme is joy, and also the gravity of the responsibility of succession. In 4 minutes, without any exposition, The Lion King gives us everything. Its values, its tone, its mythic scale, a kingdom built on action, rhythm, and feeling. Then, blackout. One drumbeat. The Lion King. So, how does this film use music as both decoration and structure? How does it build character, stakes, and story through song? Is The Lion King a classic of musical storytelling, standing proudly among the golden greats? Or is it its own genre, a postmodern fusion of animation, pop, and myth? In a genre once ruled by sailors in tap shoes and showgirls chasing Broadway dreams, can a lion cub with daddy issues rewrite the rules? How did the Disney creative powers arrive at the idea for The Lion King? Following on from The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin, thematically The Lion King seems like a left turn, albeit a turn towards a more mature mode of storytelling. The germ for the idea for the movie was born in the executive bloodsport corporate mousehouse culture of the late 1980s. Head of feature animation Jeffrey Katzenberg and CEO Michael Eisner brought in a pitching process known as the Gong Show. It was named after a 1970s talent show, which had seen mediocre acts gonged off stage mid-performance. Any member of staff, from veteran animators to junior storyboard artists, were invited to pitch high-concept ideas for movies in rapid fire. As a matter of course, Katzenberg would routinely gong dozens of pitches regardless of their quality. Whilst it appeared cruel, the idea was to try and help the animators access a new level of creativity, ensuring that all obvious, bland ideas were rejected, forcing the creators to dig deep into their originality. Producer Don Hahn later recalled that for an idea to be taken seriously, it firstly had to have been defended, torn apart, and thrown in the bin. The idea for The Lion King began life under the title King of the Jungle. Let us generously overlook the insignificant zoological detail that lions don't actually live in jungles. In late 1988, whilst on a flight to Europe, Oliver and Company director George Scribner pitched to Katzenberg, Roy E. Disney, and executive Peter Schneider, what if we did Bambi, but in Africa, with lions? The project was first intended to be executed with the realistic feel of a nature documentary, This original idea helps to explain one of the key elements about the movie. This isn't a musical about people, it's a musical about animals. There are no anthropomorphized cute creatures. These are animals who snarl, claw, hunt, love, eat, and obey nature's hierarchies. They just happen to sing whilst they do it. Following development issues, the project was handed to directors Roger Allers and Rob Minkoff, who reimagined the animation through the cinematic lens. Wide shots, dramatic perspectives, and imagined focal length made the savannah feel epic. Concept artist Hans Bacher drew lens flares and light effects to heighten realism. Inspirations ranged from David Lean to Leni Riefenstahl, not ideologically, but for grandeur and composition. Early concepts for the film included lions versus baboons, Rafiki as a cheetah, Timon and Pumbaa as childhood friends, and Simba remaining in Pride Lands as a slovenly adult. Scar, attempting to force Nala into marriage, was removed from the film but was restored for Broadway. The popular reading is that The Lion King's main inspiration is Hamlet. The parallels are obvious. A royal son in exile, a ghostly father, a murderous uncle. Whether or not this makes Timon and Pumbaa Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, The Lion King wears its Shakespearean lineage with pride. But in its DNA are other equally important strands. A touch of Bambi, a soupçon of African musical rhythms, and a dash of Broadway panache for seasoning. 3,000 years before Mickey Mouse whistled in a steamboat in the Nile Valley, Egyptian storytellers told the myth of Osiris. Osiris was a wise and benevolent ruler. His brother Set envied him, murdered him, and seized the throne. The rightful heir, the young prince named Horus, is forced into exile. Years later, he returns to confront the usurper. And just as when fallen King Mufasa appears to Simba in the night sky, Osiris continues to guide his son from the realm of the afterlife. Moving west, across to the oral traditions of Mali, storytellers known as griots told the epic tale of Sundiata Keita. The title translates as The Lion King. Sundiata is born the son of a ruler, but after his father's death, he is driven into exile as a child. He grows up far from the kingdom that should have been his. The epic follows his long journey through hardship and growth before he returns to defeat a tyrant and reclaim the throne. The griots are historians, advisors, and performers all at once, and are echoed in the character of Rafiki. Other parallels come from the Judeo-Christian texts, ancient religious narratives from the Middle East, collected in the Bible and hugely influential in Western culture. Several biblical themes echo through The Lion King. There are stories of brothers divided by jealousy, Cain and Abel, in which one brother murders the other. There are tales of figures forced away from home, who later return with a large destiny. Joseph is sold into exile by his brothers before rising to power in a foreign land. Moses grows up far from his birth family before returning to lead his people. Simba's moment of revelation when he looks to the sky and sees the image of his father recalls a dream in the book of Genesis, in which a man named Jacob sees a ladder stretching from earth to heaven. When Scar's rule turns the Pride Lands barren and lifeless, it carries an echo of another biblical story, the plagues of Egypt, a sequence of disasters said to strike a land when the natural order has been broken. After the film's release, many noted similarities to Osamu Tezuka's 1960s TV cartoon, Kimba the White Lion. Shared themes included a lion prince, animal kingdoms, and certain visual motifs. A petition of 488 Japanese animators alleged plagiarism. Lion King directors Allers and Minkoff insisted they had not seen Kimba. Tezuka Productions acknowledged the overlap, but accepted that talking animals in Africa inevitably shared imagery. No legal action was pursued, and the story became pop culture legend, which was even parodied in The Simpsons. Perhaps The Lion King is a new way of telling old stories. Disney gave it a new setting, a new cast of characters, and an epic score that creates its sense of myth. And maybe that is why the film feels familiar on first watching. By the early 1990s, Disney animation was in the middle of what would later be called its renaissance. The formula was by then well established. Take a well-loved tale, add a romance, a comic sidekick or two, and a score with Broadway ambitions. The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin followed the pattern neatly. Each centred on human heroes. Each drew from stories familiar to the audience. Against that culture, the studio's next prestige project looked clear. Disney's most experienced animators were drawn towards Pocahontas. It had everything the money men thought would make a hit. A visually arresting historical setting, a central romance, and serious themes. It was custom-made for award season. The Lion King was an original story which was reaching for mythic status. No warbling princesses, not even any humans. A drama about lions in Africa, touching on death, exile, and responsibility, and somehow a musical. The film ended up staffed by Team B. These were artists who were no less talented than the Pocahontas team, but were made up of a group not working in the studio's main spotlight. It was the long shot that turned out to be one of the studio's biggest successes. The assumption that The Lion King would not be a hit helped the movie step into its power. There was no existing, much-loved story on which it was based. There was no pressure about living up to the audience's expectations. This gave the filmmakers freedom. Ideas could be tested, the tone could be tweaked, and the story could be worked on from the ground up. This liberation resulted in a chaotic production process. Scripts were constantly revised, characters morphed, and the emotional pitch swerved into oncoming traffic. A whole zoo of animals were culled. Mitu, Nala's younger brother, Barty, the bat-eared fox, Joker, a rock python, an evil gorilla, Nala's father, a separate pride leader, and speaking vultures were removed. Some ideas evolved. The rhino's tick bird became Zazu. Scar grew darker, more sly, and more camp. Timon and Pumbaa, originally fleeting comic relief, filled a gap at the heart of the film with warmth. The Lion King crawled from Shakespearean tragedy to loony buddy comedy to meaningful spirituality, sometimes within the same scene. The sonic landscape of the film is patched together from three main sources. Its starting point is the choral work of South African composer and vocalist Lebo M. These authentic African musical traditions give the soundtrack its emotional heart. To this powerful bass, composer Hans Zimmer, whose unlikely first professional gig was writing the theme tune for the British daytime quiz show Going for Gold, added a sweeping orchestral score. Zimmer was no fan of traditional musicals, but he felt a personal connection to young Simba's journey, having lost his own father at a young age. The third musical layer were the songs themselves. Lyricist Tim Rice, who had stepped in as understudy to complete Aladdin following the tragic death of Howard Ashman, returned to the Pride. Disney's favoured tunesmith Alan Menken was busy working on what he assumed was the guaranteed hit, Pocahontas, and it was Rice who suggested an ambitious collaborator, Elton John. who was still standing after all those years. John was not an obvious choice for an animated film, but he was excited by the challenge. Specifically, the prospect of writing songs that could cross over into the pop charts. Pop trivia fans might like to know that this was not the first time that this brace of knights had worked together. Decades earlier, Rice and John had both sung backing vocals on the Scaffold's 1968 comedy hit, Lily the Pink. The result was an original musical landscape which was new to Disney, a fusion of pop, symphony, and African choral traditions. The film's standout sequence was the wildebeest stampede, where the screen fills with dust, hooves, and thunder rushing by at 30 miles an hour. It lasts just 2.5 minutes, but took 2 years to animate. Traditional hand-drawn animation was unable to handle the depiction of hundreds of independently moving animals in a canyon, so the computer animation department wrote a new software to handle the task. It generated random paths for each beast, giving the impression of a panicked and believable herd. To match the style of the rest of the film, the computer-generated images were made to look hand-drawn. This was achieved by just 5 specialist animators. The Lion King marked a turning point in the use of animation technology. With the introduction of the Computer Animation Production System, or CAPS for short, which had been developed with Pixar and put to use in the ballroom dance sequence in Beauty and the Beast, the team had digitized the coloring process. Ink and paint could now be achieved in the computer, which meant that colors could be consistent throughout. Lighting and atmospheric effects, such as dust particles, could be added. This allowed for characters to be combined with their backgrounds in a way that enabled more complex camera movements, changes in lighting, and sunlight shafts. These advances gave the film an epic, cinematic look that echoed the sweep of the savannah. As production neared the end, an earthquake struck Los Angeles and the studio was closed. With release date looming, animators set up micro-studios in homes across the city in order to complete the movie. The Lion King was finished remotely 25 years before home working became the norm. When casting live-action films, producers are looking for screen presence and charisma. But in animation, it all comes down to the voice. The best voice actors can conjure entire worlds with just vocal tone. The Lion King cast mixed Shakespearean actors with Broadway comedians, TV stars, and one man whose job it was to roar. James Earl Jones, who had previously lent his voice to Darth Vader in the Star Wars trilogy, brought a voice that was resonant, paternal, and commanding, and needed just a few words to establish his regal stature. Jeremy Irons seemed to enjoy sinking his teeth into Scar, slipping into pure Bel Air Rada, that mythical accent no Brit has ever spoken, reserved strictly for Hollywood's loosely evil sociopaths. Every line curled out in a velvet drawl, laced with disdain and the promise of danger. Jeremy Irons' singing chops weren't considered the full shilling, and the very end of the song Be Prepared is dubbed by the actor Jim Cummings to strengthen the climax. Every lion roar, from Mufasa's regal thunder to young Simba's scrappy yelps, was performed by voice actor Frank Welker, who roared into an empty metal bin to perfect a lion-like timbre. Recording real lion roars was an option, but a talented voice actor was needed in order to imbue each different roar with the necessary menace, warmth, or fear. Nathan Lane and Ernie Sabella brought a one-off chemistry to their performances as Timon and Pumbaa. They blended vaudeville shtick with cabaret flair, helping the film turn from tragedy to comedy without missing a beat. Lane and Sibella were appearing in a Broadway revival of Guys and Dolls at the time, and had originally auditioned for Zazu and One of the Hyenas. Their improvisations together inspired the creation of Timon and Pumbaa. Matthew Broderick played the adult Simba, and despite the amount of screen time that Timon and Simba share, Lane and Broderick only met once during the 3-year production process. In 2001, Lane and Broderick were finally able to create a double act when they appeared together in the hit stage show The Producers. Actor Robert Guillaume, who was best known as the acid-tongue butler in Benson, a spin-off sitcom from the hit comedy Soap, was cast as Rafiki. Originally, the character was intended to be a cheetah. When reimagined as a mandrill, Guillaume gave Rafiki a distinctive voice, born from a failed attempt at a Jamaican accent. Rafiki is a mystical outsider, and the final vocal performance echoes this in blending Caribbean rhythm and East African vocal tones. Whilst most characters kept a single voice throughout, Simba, the film's central focal point, was split between 4 performers. Young Simba spoke with the boyish charm of Jonathan Taylor Thomas and sang with the richer vocals of Jason Weaver. As an adult, Simba's dialogue is given the hesitant, introspective tones of Matthew Broderick, while his songs were sung with the voice of Joseph Williams, the lead singer of 1980s band Toto. The thinking is to ensure that the dialogue is handled by acting experts who make the speech relatable and warm, while the songs are managed by powerful singers. It is the way to ensure the film has commercial potential and artistic credentials. Williams was able to bring a vocal gravitas to Simba's growing sense of responsibility in a way that Broderick may not have been able to. And the audience's association with Toto's hit song Africa created a subconscious pop cultural link to the film's setting. Yet, in achieving this polish, the split personality vocal casting does have repercussions. Traditionally, songs in musicals amplify feelings. Songs are the vessels for emotions that are too big for words alone. In casting multiple voices for Simba, the emotional flow is broken. Instead of the smooth journey from cub to king, the evolution feels disjointed, interrupted by the handing over of a microphone. This gives the audience a sense of distance, as if they are unconsciously being reminded that this is a performance. The Lion King is hip to the rules of the musical. It knows that you don't stop action for a song. The song is the action. It knows that characters don't just burst into song because they are happy or sad, but that by the close of the number, the audience will know more about them. The major plot moments are underlined in song, and music is the means by which the story is driven forwards. Employed throughout are leitmotifs, short phrases that are attached to certain characters, moods, themes, or places. Bright trumpets accompany ceremonies, and cellos indicate intimate moments. A theme called This Land is cued when there is emotional weight and prepares the way for Simba's ascent to the crown. As we have seen, Circle of Life sets the scene and establishes that this animal kingdom is built on tradition and legacy. It tells us all we need to know about what is at stake in this world. Simba is given a classic example of an I want song. This is the moment when a character dreams out loud. Think of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, looking to break out of her sepia world and into Technicolor in Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Or Eliza Doolittle fantasizing about the finer things in life, singing Wouldn't It Be Lovely? Simba belts out, I just can't wait to be king. It's a colourful dream by the precocious prince. The animation acknowledges its film musical heritage, shifting into Busby Berkeley-esque production number, a bright, joyous idea of what wearing the crown would be like, not the heavy, sombre responsibilities that Simba will eventually come to understand. Be Prepared coils into the grand Disney tradition of the villain's song, in the manner of Ursula's Poor Unfortunate Souls from The Little Mermaid, 1989, or Carr's hypnotic Trust in Me, The Jungle Book, 1967. Scar's dastardly intention is to the fore, and it is amplified by green lighting effects, dark shadows, and the chilling goose steps of the hyenas. The use of this fascist-adjacent movement moves the song into the territory of ideological rally. Following the emotional turmoil of Mufasa's death, Hakuna Matata arrives as much-needed comic relief, serving as a swift montage to move Simba from childhood to adulthood. In adopting the mantra of no worries, Simba finds a way to cope with his demons. He will bury his grief instead of confronting it. At this point, Simba refrains from singing for a stretch, which is an indication of his emotional stagnation. After a period of carefree rough and tumble, Nala returns to the narrative and reawakens Simba as their romance grows. We hear him singing internal monologue in Can You Feel the Love Tonight? We understand that his buried feelings are unlocked, and he begins to reconnect with his true self. And if it has occurred to you that the song's narrative structure is bizarre, then this is because the film was a duct tape scramble resulting from an artistic compromise. There are 3 narrative levels in the song. Timon and Pumbaa open and close the song singing out loud. Simba and Nala express their private thoughts, seemingly through telepathy. We are suddenly introduced to a disembodied, anonymous narrator, sung by Crystal Edwards, who appears for just 90 seconds as a kind of voice of Mother Nature, delivers the emotional core of the film, and then disappears. The original choice had been to give the whole song to Timon and Pumbaa as a slapstick comedy number. Elton John was horrified by the decision and threatened to pull the song unless it was used as a sincere, romantic ballad. This left the filmmakers with a difficult problem. They thought that to have 2 lions walking on all fours whilst expressing sophisticated Broadway balladry would look absurd. The first fix was to make the lions' lyrics silent thoughts only. Yet, at the swelling climax, having 2 lions stare at each other in muted silence felt somehow awkward. So they decided that they needed another voice to act as narrator. Whilst the all-knowing outsider Rafiki may have been an obvious narrative choice, his voice had been established as a sandpaper rasp and would have been unable to deliver the pop gospel power that was needed. Timon and Pumbaa had been sent to the naughty step, so were unable to help. With the release date approaching, Edwards was hired to fill in the gaps, an invisible singer working as an emergency band-aid. And Elton John was proved right in defending the number. It won both an Oscar and a Grammy. Some songs were cut, To Be King for Mufasa and Warthog Rhapsody for Timon and Pumbaa. A song called The Morning Report, cut during initial release, was restored in the 2003 special edition. The only song in the film not written for the movie carries a notoriously complicated copyright history. When Timon and Pumbaa sing The Lion Sleeps Tonight, they are performing a tune originally written in 1939 by South African singer Solomon Linda, who recorded it as Mbube. Linda sold the rights to the song for less than $2. Over the following decades, Western publishers adapted the tune, removed Linda's name from the credits, and treated it as if it were in the public domain. This allowed American writers to earn millions in royalties. Disney did pay copyright for the song during production of The Lion King, but the money went to the US publishers, while Linda's daughters struggled to survive in Soweto. It wasn't until a 2006 legal battle that Linda's heirs were awarded their share of the proceeds. The full fascinating story is told in the Netflix documentary Remastered: The Lion's Share. When it was released in 1994, The Lion King was seen as the crowning achievement of the Disney Renaissance. The visuals, the emotional scope, and soundtrack were unlike anything audiences had seen. It was the highest-grossing film of the year, and for a while was also the highest-grossing animated movie ever made. When Hans Zimmer's orchestral score won the Academy Award for the Best Original Score, it was the first time an animated film had won that honour. Golden Globes followed, as did numerous sequels and a long-running stage adaptation. Part of the unique magic of The Lion King is in how it draws on African musical traditions, although this influence is seen through a distinctly Western pop lens. The film's spiritual heartbeat is the choral arrangements of Lebo M, the rich Swahili lyrics, and the percussive rhythms. However, that mix drew a debate. Was this a heartfelt celebration of African culture, or a well-meaning but thorny act of cultural appropriation? At the time of release, critics pointed out the lack of African and African diasporic representation among the film's creative team and cast. Despite the setting, the landscapes and wildfire, and music steeped in African tradition, those who were telling the story were overwhelmingly Western. As time progressed, criticism sharpened, arguing that the portrayal of African culture was less a lived reality and more an exotic backdrop. The 2019 remake attempted to redress this balance, with a cast that included Beyoncé, Donald Glover, and Chiwetel Ejiofor, and a greater involvement of creatives of African heritage, such as the returning producer Lebo M. However, critics pointed to the lack of authentic voices shaping the writer's room and the director's chair. When The Lion King transferred from screen to stage, the creative team took the opportunity to address the limited space given to its female characters. In the 1994 movie, figures such as Nala and Sarabi circle the central drama rather than drive it. Nala is bright and smart, but her narrative function seems to be to prod gloomy Simba out of his prolonged bout of self-pity. Sarabi, the queen and Simba's mother, appears only briefly in a story otherwise dominated by male rivalries and succession struggles. Zoologists will tell you that this is an irony, as lion prides are, in fact, matriarchal societies. Lionesses hunt, lead and sustain the group, yet in the film, power, destiny and restoration are depicted as male concerns. On stage, Nala is given a defining moment of her own in the song Shadowland. Rather than waiting for Simba's return, she becomes a leader within the wasted Pride Lands, choosing to leave in search of help. The result is a character with purpose, resolve, and a journey independent of the film's hero. This wasn't the stage show's only reinvention. In the mid-1990s, Disney had begun looking to Broadway. After the success of the stage version of Beauty and the Beast, the Mouse House's theatrical division began looking at other properties that might make the transition from animation to live performance. The Lion King seemed like an improbable candidate. The film's creators had enough difficulty animating the story about lions, giraffes, and stampeding wildebeest, so how could it possibly work on stage? To solve that puzzle, Disney turned to director Julie Taymor. Taymor was known for adventurous theatre that blended global performance traditions, masks, and puppetry. Her work was inspired by Balinese theatre, Japanese puppetry, and the European avant-garde, not the usual Broadway palette. When Disney first approached her, she considered whether the technical challenges of staging the show were indeed insurmountable. And it was that impossibility that became the attraction. Taymor embraced theatrical artifice. Performers would not appear inside realistic costumes in the time-honoured Disney parade fashion. Instead, audiences would see both the actor and the animal at the same time. Lions were suggested through masks that sat above the performer's face. Giraffes towered above the stage on stilts. Herds were conjured through ingenious puppetry. The result was a new stage language where the audience's imagination filled the gaps. Choreographer Garth Fagan created a movement style that blended modern dance, Afro-Caribbean rhythms, and animal physicality. Performers moved as their creatures might move. Antelopes springing across the stage, predators stalking low to the ground, ensembles flowing together like migrating herds. Some veterans of the Broadway musicals, such as Cabaret's John Kander and Fred Ebb, were sceptical, arguing that the production leaned too heavily on spectacle. Audiences, however, saw the expanded possibilities of commercial theatre. Here was a show that mixed puppetry, dance, mask work, and music into a unified vision. The stage version of The Lion King has become one of the most commercially successful theatre productions. From the first day of its release, The Lion King invited questions. Could pop ballads carry the weight of tragedy? Could animals carry the weight of an epic musical? Could an animation change the nature of the American musical tradition? The film is a coming-of-age drama, but is also in the tradition of an Arcadian musical. In an Arcadian musical, a paradise has been lost, as in Brigadoon. Scar has broken the circle of life, and it is only when Simba returns that the land is healed. It is an ancient storytelling cycle of fall and redemption. It is a political parable, a post-colonial remix, and a pop-operatic myth. The 1997 stage adaptation is now the highest-grossing show in Broadway history. It has travelled further than any other Disney musical, from Hamburg to Tokyo to Johannesburg. The Lion King has been reinterpreted, often with a local spin. And the pride grew. Spin-offs, sequels, and a critically divisive but commercially successful 2019 live-action remake followed. Beyoncé's 2020 visual album Black is King reframes The Lion King's themes through a diasporic lens. What began as a Team B project became Disney's defining work of the 1990s. The Lion King is a Shakespearean tragedy sung in pop harmonies, an animated film with an epic soul, a Broadway show that transcended Broadway. More than a story where animals sing, it is a story where they feel through music: joy, grief, exile, belonging, and love. This has been Miles from London, signing off once again from the corner of 42nd Street and Oklahoma. The show was written, performed, produced, and scored by me, Miles Eady. If you enjoyed this episode, do spread the word and explore my other videos and podcasts on the glorious and glittering history of the film musical. And if you didn't enjoy it, then please tell your friends that I've been Sir Tim Rice. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye, and I'll see you next time.